Hey, welcome back. You're listening to This with Krish, where I talk about faith, I talk about culture, and family and freedom, and the real stuff shaping our world. Now, today's episode hits close to home for a lot of people on the right. Okay? And even for those who may not fully agree with everything Charlie Kirk stood for, but because today, October 14th, has officially been recognized as the National Charlie Kirk Day. Now, depending on where you sit politically, that may make you smile or roll your eyes. But what it should make all of us do is pause and ask a few real questions. Why did this day happen? What does it represent? And why are so many powerful voices across media like Candace Owens or Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson and, Patrick Bet-David even, all circling the same mysterious cloud around the investigation into his death? Okay, there's a lot of content out there on social media, specifically TikTok. And what I want to do is not really take a side. You all know I'm pretty conservative, okay? But I want you to use this time to kind of unpack what this day means, right? And is it a day of remembrance or is it a political statement? But first, let's get to the facts, okay? In September, last month, a couple of weeks ago, the U.S. Senate unanimously passed a resolution establishing October 14th as a National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk. That's not an internet rumor. It's very real. And it passed without a single no vote. Even in this climate, right? That's wild. Now, this resolution encourages schools, churches, civic groups to commemorate the day. It's not a day off, right? It's not a public holiday off, but it's a moment to reflect on faith, liberty, and civic engagement. Those were the three pillars, right, often tied to Kirk's messages. For better or worse, depending on who you ask, that's what he stood for and his beliefs. Now, for his supporters, this day means legacy, okay? It's about a guy who was like a young man who then built something out of absolutely nothing, which is called Turning Point USA. He shaped an entire generation of young conservatives who finally felt seen and loud and proud to speak their minds. He changed the course of history. He basically changed the election with young people. It was amazing. But for the critics, this is complicated, right? Because when politics and martyrdom intersect, the story becomes less about truth and more about symbolism. And that's where this whole thing in the last 5 weeks has gotten so interesting, okay? Because Charlie Kirk's assassination back on September 10th was one of those moments that froze the timeline. Like everything just stopped around the world. It happened during that campus event, right, we all know about, at Utah Valley University. And while the headlines broke all over the world, immediately the details, they never really lined up neatly after that. Okay. You got federal agencies saying one thing. You've got local law enforcement saying another. You've got media and social media leaking like fueling speculation, right? Like pouring gasoline on a well-lit fire. And in that silence, right, that vacuum, voices like Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson, they all stepped in. Not because they wanted to have Charlie's seat or be popular. They were already pretty damn popular. Let's break down what each has been saying or not saying, because that's just as telling. Okay, let's start with Candace Owens. Man, she came out swinging. Okay, she's claimed there's evidence, including leaked texts, that show Charlie was under serious pressure from major donors, some of whom he felt were trying to control his positions on Israel. On Tucker Carlson, right? Like they didn't want him on stage at TPUSA events. And even on how far he could push the envelope publicly. Now, Candace Owens, she's hinted that those tensions may have played a role in what happened. And that parts of this investigation are being buried or scrubbed. Now, to be fair, She's a kick-ass reporter, and she states some of this is still unverified, but she's trying to dig for it, right? But in her world, where skepticism and government narratives have always run pretty deep, her audience doesn't necessarily need proof to believe what she says. Okay? Her audience, right, 6 million plus have been watching every single day she's posted. That audience is emotional. It's kind of a tribal thing, and they have that they're hiding something energy, and that energy is powerful. She's capitalized on it. But I believe her intentions are true. She was Charlie's friend after all. Megyn Kelly, here's another one, right? She has taken more of a, I would say, a measured tone. She's not saying cover up. She's not, but she is definitely asking the right and sharp questions, right? Why haven't we seen the full footage of 3,000 college students that were on campus, right? Why is the government promising transparency but not? Why are journalists getting stifled and asked to get off these stories and be quiet? She's playing the middle ground, which in today's media world is like trying to walk a tightrope during a hurricane. Some are accusing her of being way too cautious. I would call it integrity, right? Just either way, she's helping people think instead of react. And that's something we need way more of. And then there's Tucker Carlson, okay? I love this guy. I've been listening to him for years. I think he's great. But he true hasn't come out and said, oh, I know who did it, whether he does or doesn't. But he doesn't need to say it, right? All he has to do is frame it. Isn't it strange how people who challenge power always seem to, end up silenced? He's got this way of saying things that make you think. That's a masterclass, I think, in narrative. It implies everything without ever saying anything. Tucker's positions, right? He positions Kirk's death not as an isolated tragedy, but as a part of a bigger war over truth, speech, and control. And that framing sticks. If you haven't watched his 9/11 miniseries, definitely do. I did an episode on it. It's great. Because when trust in institutions is gone, every gap in information becomes like a breeding ground for speculation. And that's what he does. He talks about it from that perspective. Okay? Now, here's where I think we need to pause. We've all become so conditioned to choose a side that we've forgotten to look for truth, right? Whether it started with 9/11, it's gone, every presidential election. I mean, look, Charlie Kirk's legacy, whether you loved him or not, was built on saying what others wouldn't say. So honoring that legacy means demanding honesty, right? Even when it's inconvenient, even when it's not politically comfortable. If there was pressure, if there was corruption, if there was a failure of transparency, we do definitely 1,000% deserve to know. But we also deserve to filter the noise because, look, not every dramatic headline is a conspiracy and not every unanswered question is a cover-up, okay? Faith calls us to discernment, and that's what this moment needs more than ever. So, look, October 14th, right, is not just about a single man. It is, but it's more about what he represented, right, which was courage, conviction, and controversy, believe it or not. You didn't think I was going to say that. But yeah, controversy. He was a lightning rod because he was loud about what he believed. But maybe that's exactly what this country needs right now. A reminder that conviction and conversation can coexist. We don't have to turn into violence. We don't have to turn this day into a shouting match. It's not about who's right, because then we miss the point. If we use it as a moment to silent dissent, we betray everything Charlie Kirk even preached about, which was freedom of speech. So maybe the best way to honor Charlie Kirk today is to think for yourself. Speak boldly and refuse to outsource your opinion to anyone, including the left or the right. I didn't start out this week saying, hey, I was going to write this episode and publish it. But look, this episode wasn't about taking sides. It's still not about taking sides. It is about the truth. Because in the end, our culture doesn't need more outrage, more violence, more just attacks on each other. It needs more honesty. So whether you're lighting a candle today, whether you're wearing a Turning Point tee like I am, whether it says "Here I am" or "Freedom," or just trying to understand the noise, remember this: real freedom begins when we stop repeating narratives and start thinking for ourselves. Wow. I mean, that was deep. I know. Hopefully you got something out of this. This is the This with Krish show. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, and both of there's links in the description. If you take anything away from this episode today, let it be this: speak boldly, live truthfully, and love relentlessly. I love you guys.